Hello, you gorgeous godly thing. If you do not know me, I'm Shara. Just Shara. Just a woman who was born into a life of suffering, of darkness, who is now walking a path to the embodiment of authentic soul, to the divine, to capital S self, not little human self, big divine self. And I share that path with you because that's what I'm called to do. This is Ramblin Wood Witch. So we're doing things a little bit differently today. And this is going to be a hard one for me to speak on because it's vulnerable. It's kind of threatens my little self, my ego self, and I don't know, it's a hard one. I've tried to talk about it already before, but when I tried to talk about it before, I was very triggered still, and I realized that I wasn't seeing the whole picture, so I stopped recording mid-video. And it occurs to me now as I'm speaking to you that maybe I don't have the whole expanded picture yet, but I do have enough of it that I can humble myself. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be vulnerable, authentic, raw, and honest as I pride myself on being. When I first started sitting with the concept of the shadow worker, it was because I was still very steeped in a place of darkness. And you hear so much about light workers. Light workers are loud. But I just knew that I didn't resonate with that word or that term. I understand that the two share a lot of commonalities. Is that a word? It is now. I understand that, but I would much rather lean into mystic or oracle. And I understand too that a lot of what I talk about is lightworker themed, holding space for what is despicable, what is ugly, what is atrocious, and pouring love into those spaces in order to break up the density. That's all light worker work. It's also shadow worker work. I'm standing by this shadow worker thing until the end, but I do want to make this video. In that moment, and when I realized that I'm not a light worker, I more resonate with the shadow worker, it started to become something very embodied. And that's why I have such a hard time translating, because I don't know how to bring words to something that is all energy. I struggle to describe energy as it is, and this is an especially hard one because it's so sensitive. But let's look at the truth here. The shadow worker is an archetype, just like the light worker, and as human beings, we hold the capacity for both archetypes within us. This is hard to talk about. When I first started this journey, I was practicing high magic. I didn't have the discipline or the focus really necessary. I could build some strong circles, but it was hard for me to drag myself off the couch to do that in the first place. I was trying to force trans work. I was just trying to find something that resonated. And then I found a space called Rewilding with a woman named Sabrina. And her work changed everything for me. And last week, I commented on a post on Facebook about shadow workers and how it needs to be talked about because some of us don't resonate with being a light worker. And I was really attacked in those comments. Like, people just ganged up on me. And I went straight out of that space into one of her videos because I thought, I have to get grounded, I have to get embodied. And her video, she just happened to be talking a whole hell of a lot about light workers, and me in my triggered state, not in alignment, commented something along the lines of, shadow workers need to wake up. And in the moment, my intent was not like, I'm triggered and I'm going to insult shadow workers. It was more like, I want to bring awareness to something that is really, honestly, truly calling me from a place of alignment. Shadow worker needs to be as loud as the light worker. It does. And I just wanted to bring awareness, but I was in the wrong space. And looking back, going back and reading, it came off all wrong. But that is also a pattern of mine. I resonated with a writer for so long. I was a writer. I was a poet. And as I've started this spiritual journey, I've gotten further and further away from that being a part of my truth. And I've noticed that oftentimes when I'm not communicating like this and I'm typing and I'm writing, my words, my intention, my energy gets so lost in translation. People take it wrong. People get super triggered. And I'm not putting that on anybody else. That's on me. I could choose better words. I'm all for taking accountability. But I think that is because writing's not my thing anymore. I am called here like this, where people can see me and hear my tone and feel my energy and maybe understand where I'm coming from a little bit better. Anyway, she hearted it and left a little star comment under it. But 2 days later, a video came out that was titled, "Why Light Workers Are Lost Right Now." And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch it because in the moment, I didn't connect the two. I didn't think that it had anything to do with the comment or with me. But then she put out her new astrology video. And in it, she calls me out directly. She says, "I do not for a second believe that you are hanging out in this space and you are not a channel for grace and love." And I realized I didn't present myself well in that comment. And this woman has obviously never watched a video or seen me talk to get a feel for me other than that comment. And why would she? She's busy living her life, you know. I'm just not even on her radar. And then she also says something. She says, I don't know, something about all these different shadow work archetypes, and then she says they're all beautiful shadow workers, but don't get stuck there. And this whole thing started to pull me in multiple directions. The loudest response in me was to curl up in a ball and fucking hide, to stop making videos, to stop following my path. But I also know that that's not what Sabrina would want, and I admire that woman with everything in me. If I had not found her, I wouldn't be where I am. I am so grateful for that woman's existence. So that brings up another reaction that I was having in me, that that here is this person who I so greatly admire, whose opinion that I value. And it feels like she's telling me that I'm wrong and that I don't know what I'm talking about, which I don't think that was her intent either. I think she just didn't want people to get stuck there. Like she said it, don't get stuck there. And in the past, that would have made me question everything too. But thanks to this space and this woman, I have grown in big and profound ways. And this is literally the woman who taught me how to connect to myself, to alignment. And now she's asking me to question that, which, you know, purpose moves, it flows, and we're always stepping into next truest, next greatest. So we should be questioning in some capacity. But I've also just stepped into this, and I know it's not time. Because I also know that there are people out there who are like me, that were so entrenched in the darkness, that literally identified as the darkness. Something that I used to actually speak aloud was, ain't no light that could penetrate this black heart, this cold, dead heart. So, Lightworker did not resonate with me. And trying to strive for that just kind of slowed me down. And I was judging myself so hard for it. And people need to know that shadow worker, that this polarity exists, because it might awaken people. It might serve as a tool for people like me who are longing for bigger and for more and to reclaim their soul, to actually do that instead of judging themselves so hard for not resonating with the light and giving up on themselves. So maybe in the past, I would have really been questioning myself. I would have been thrown into confusion. Now I'm in such a solid space of trust that I know. And I did leave a comment that responded to that video, and I tried to explain myself a little more, and she replied to something like, "Thank you for the work that you're doing, sister," or something like that. But now that I've gotten that out of the way, I can delve into what this lit up in me. So, like I said, this pulled me in a million different directions. A part of me was very triggered. Another part totally understood and resonated with what she was saying. And all of those parts are true. But what I wanted to know is why I was so triggered. Because this it literally like took over my energy. And I think that our triggers and the things that consume us are healing markers, they're growth edges that we brush up against on our path. And when we find ourselves in a space like I was in, where I was so upset and worried about this, why is this bothering me so much? Why is this consuming me? Let me tell you a little story so that I can kind of weave what I'm trying to say into being. When I was practicing high magic, I didn't call myself a witch. I would not tell people I was a witch. I wouldn't. I would say, I am an energetic manipulator. I manipulate energy. I was more comfortable using the word manipulator to describe myself, even though that's not what it means, but unconscious people will grab onto that word because they're unconscious, than actually calling myself a witch, calling myself what I was. And when I found rewilding, I started to delve into why that was, and I found that it's because I'm scared of the word. I don't resonate with the word because I'm scared of it. I'm scared of being labeled a witch, of having people judge me. The witch line in my family had been so suppressed for so long. I come from a family with amazing oracle capabilities that were very suppressed. I believe with everything in me that my grandma was a seer and she just didn't tell anybody. That woman knew things that I did alone in a room. Like, how are you finding this out? But that was all suppressed. It was repressed. It was rejected. And so I had to reclaim that word witch. And now I use it proud and way fucking out loud. There ain't nobody that could say anything about me being a witch that could make me shy away from my fucking power. That's another reason I was afraid of my own power. Weaving it back into shadow worker now. When I first started thinking about this, it was really from that space that I talked about before, where I just didn't resonate with the light. And I was so tired of hearing light worker this and light worker that. But then here's me who is like on this journey to reclaiming my light for myself, not resonating with light worker, but knowing that I came from a place drenched in shadow, that I literally identified with the darkness. And I have realized in this that my aversion to light worker is still coming from that place, even though I am more of a light than I've ever been. And I talk way out loud about reclaiming our light and living as soul embodied in this world. But my aversion to being a light worker is coming from a wounded place. My embracing of the shadow worker is true, and it's real, and it's aligned, and it needs to be spoken about. But I also don't have to put down light workers while I'm doing it, because I think that unconsciously that's kind of what I was doing, even though my intention is never to put down anybody. Our subconscious minds, our shadows, they act in silly ways when it wants to be seen. It just does. And this wants to be seen, this needed to be seen so that I can step out from under that fear of my own power, the fear of my own light, and fully into expression of light worker, because as I said, it's an archetype. And as somebody who works with archetype, who believes in polarity and the divine paradox, if I'm going to embrace and live from a space of healthy shadow worker, I also have to be able to embrace and embody healthy light worker without fear, without rejection of the archetype. And that's really what it boils down to. There is a part of me that is fucking terrified to step into my full expression of light, because it might change this core of my being. It might change this kinship that I have with shadow, and I'm so fucking attached to it because it's all I've known. It's what I'm comfortable with, right? It's South Node territory. And if I ever want to actually fully embody this divine expression, I have to embrace those uncomfortable, terrifying, rejected parts of me, as we all do. Right now, I am being called into something new, and it is a space, a creation that operates very heavily from light worker archetypes, from light worker type energies. And I'm bringing that into being as we speak. But I will never be able to sustain that space or that creation if I'm rejecting the part of myself that needs to thrive in order to hold that space. Do we understand what I'm saying? The shadow worker is so important in our time. In this moment in time, things are changing. The energy's changing. And a lot of us are lost. I've never shied away from saying that I feel lost, because sometimes I do. But I know with everything in my bones that I'm more found, more whole, more embodied than I've ever been. That also doesn't mean that there aren't moments where I get lost, and I suppose in this sense, the light worker archetype is lost amongst the reeds of my kinship with the shadow and the shadow worker. But I digress. As I was saying, so many of us out there are lost. We've lived lives of profound suffering, and I'm not just talking about maybe we had a narcissistic parent or a neglectful parent. I'm talking heavy abuse and crime, violence. We don't just live in it and experience it, we become it with our whole souls. And that's how we get lost, because that type of life pulls us away from soul and away from self and into survival. We're not worried about expressing as true or authentic. We're worried about not getting beat up, not dying, where our next meal is going to come from, where our next fix is going to come from if you're an addict of any kind. We live from a space that puts us in a mental state that really honestly truly believes that we are not light, that our souls are lost or sold. I had somebody once tell me, somebody that I deeply fucking love and care for. I hold so much fucking love in my heart for this person. They told me they sold their soul to the devil. And yes, I very much believe that that is a possibility. We can sell our souls, but our souls belong to us. The devil, these dark entities, manipulate us into selling them something, our souls, to get something that we want. And because we're human, because we're trapped in this darkness and this suffering, we believe it and we give it willingly. And then when we don't get what we want, we're just kind of bummed about it. But our souls belong to us. And we are the human beings living on planet Earth, embodied. Yes, there are dark entities, but they cannot touch you unless on some level you're allowing it, even if it is subconscious. So if you bring your power back into the light, you can take back the part of yourself that you sold. But witnessing this man, this person who is so fucking lost, who doesn't believe that they can be light, and then having known and experienced and lived through that myself, I know that there are people out there who need the shadow worker. But I did need to see this. This needed to happen because I needed to see where I was rejecting and repressing myself, so that now I can step into fuller, balanced, more aligned expression of the shadow worker and talk about it, translate it in a truer way. Because if you've watched any of my shadow worker videos, you will have seen that I was really having trouble with that. And that's because I didn't have the whole picture. And like I said in the beginning of this video, maybe I still don't, but I do my best to embrace radical honesty with self, even if it hurts, even if it scares me, even if it wounds little Shara. Because I am fucking devoted to being an expression of agape, of divine love, of aletheia, of divine truth uncovered in this world, in my life. And am I at the greatest expression? Yes, in this moment I am. But that doesn't mean that I cannot step into greater, step into truer, more aligned, more authentic, which is what me making this video is doing. I'm being upfront and honest about how maybe I was fucking wrong. Maybe I was wrong. I was off. I wasn't communicating it well. And this all needed to happen so that now I can step into that more authentic, truer, aligned expression. I feel like I'm missing something here, but I'm going to wrap it up. If you have lived a life of profound suffering, if you carry deep, angry, violent, ancestral patterns, if you express in this world in ways that are of darkness, but there is even the littlest piece of you, a speck of dust inside of you that is longing for more, know that you can step into it. And maybe the way isn't reaching directly for Lightworker. Maybe the way is kind of coming in this side door into the shadow. Because when we live and express and identify in ways that are shadowy, that are dark, that are rejected in ourselves and our society, we kind of create this kinship with this shadow. And yes, eventually you will find that you are light if you're doing things correctly. And my intention is always going to be to awaken, to help people find their most authentic soul self, and soul self is light. Soul self is divine. It is. It's love. It's everything. You can't walk an enlightened, divine path without being a light of some sort. But you don't have to go all in on it at first. You can connect in a different way. You can connect first to your shadow, to your darkness. I'm not really entirely sure what's gonna come of all this for me. I might never talk about it again after this. I highly doubt that, but we'll find the way. We'll find it. You can do it. That's the whole fucking point. You can do it. You're not lost. You might be lost, but you're not hopeless. You're not so lost that you cannot call back your power and reclaim your soul. You are not so dark that the light cannot permeate you. And it's important to remember that, and that is why shadow worker is needed. But I think I've rambled long enough, so you have a lovely and wonderful day.